Hey guys, just a reminder, nothing I share here is financial advice. This is all based on my own experience, my strategy, and how I see the market. You're responsible for your own trades, so always do your own research, manage your risk, and never trade money you can't afford to lose. This content is meant to help you learn and think for yourself, not to copy or follow blindly. Let's keep it educational and intentional. Good morning, guys. Hope you're doing well. Let's see what we have. First of all, yes, we've hit an interesting level here with a lot of confluences. We had our range point of control, the 2-weekly breaker high, and the lower part of this range. So while it's a simple SR level, there are several confluences here, which is why it was the TP area for the bigger longs. Looking at the yearly Gann chart with time and price, we can see how nicely it's respected. I showed this earlier when we were talking about the yearly fib time and how price usually looks for a reversal when time meets price. You can go back and watch the videos from back then. Anyway, Bitcoin reclaimed the previous resistance level and pushed further to the upside, where it hit the circle. I mentioned that it could grind around the circle, depending on whether it's above or below it. Zooming in, that's exactly what happened. It grinded slowly, dipped a bit down, and then made the next push to the upside. Now it has hit the next price resistance level, which lines up with other confluences we just mentioned, plus the yearly price and time trend line, which is currently acting as resistance. We can clearly see how nicely it respected that. Right now, it's grinding up against it, but hasn't managed to break through. As long as price remains below, it's resistance. For a proper breakout, we'd want to see daily closes above and holding. So yes, technically this is resistance, and until it breaks above and holds, this box is basically the playground for BTC. It could easily test the circle again, not immediately of course, but technically and logically, that's the area Bitcoin is in right now. That makes it a reasonable place to take some profits, as I did. Now, let's see what levels we have and what needs to hold or break for one or the other scenario. First, some stats for the month. Bitcoin has already hit all the averages to the upside for September. And that was in this area we marked out at the monthly start. But based on other statistics I'm tracking, there's a high chance we won't see a negative September. That would mean we'd go into the next month with a positive September close. Looking at history, you can research this yourself. Every time September closed positive, the following quarter also closed positive, usually with bigger gains. This mostly happened toward the end of cycles. The question, of course, is whether cycles will repeat and for how long. We can speculate on that, but my approach is simple. Let's trade what works until it doesn't. Does that mean I'll blindly buy into the next quarter? Of course not. I still need a technical or statistical reason for a trade, like we had at the lower levels. But it's worth keeping in mind because statistically it suggests higher prices. Even September itself has displacement targets, which for this month are at all-time highs around 125K. At the very least, a 1% move higher is possible. That might not sound like much, but if you look at the chart, 1% is basically the next level we already marked out. As it stands now, and I want to be clear that stats can always change, the data shows that in the last 4 years, September always moved at least further than 10% from open to high. Right now, it's about 9%, so statistically, we should expect at least 1 more percent higher. Beyond that, the next big statistical target would be the AT8 at 125K. Again, that's not my personal wish, but simply what the numbers say. Now, looking at weekly stats, it's about highs and lows. On the right side, you can see my indicator. By the way, if you want to use it, just DM me or tag me on Discord or Telegram, and I'll add you. The high was made on Thursday. In fact, Thursday has made the weekly high 5 times so far this year. Not the biggest probability, but not the smallest either. Adding more stats. In the last 4 years, every week in my data moved further than 3% from open. Currently, BTC is up about 2.3% this week. Extending that to 3% puts us exactly at the higher level, same as the monthly stats suggested for the minimum. Historically, weeks moved further than 3%, but 3% is the minimum. So yes, this is resistance here. But what I want to say is that if this area of support holds, we could see higher prices. For that, we now mark out our local SR levels, which we'll use to watch for signs of strength or weakness. First of all, we have a daily OB here. And then we have a 3-day order block. Since the 3-day candle closed, it's now confirmed. These are the levels we'll use locally. And yes, it's basically the same as I explained yesterday already. There isn't much new to update, so we just repeat it. Now we have a daily swing low and a few levels inside our new range. First, we have the daily OB, where price could easily hold this level and just continue to chop around or move higher. However, if it breaks below, that would turn into a possible resistance area. But it's not enough just to break below. We also need to see closes below this level. Until then, what can happen is simply a move down, forming a wick, and closing back inside. That would not be bearish at that point, as long as there are no closes below it. Simple as that. With that, our second level comes into play, the 3-day order block. While the daily could be lost and show a wick down, that's where the 3-day sits, and that's where I would look for a scalp or day trade. I already showed these setups yesterday in the group, but since today is Friday and we have a public video, I'll show it again. That was the plan for yesterday, and it's still the same for now. But of course, for this to happen, price would first need to lose the Monday high, and basically the daily OB, which for now can still act as support. The thing is, I personally don't want to trade from here. Yes, it's the first SR level, and yes, it can go up from here. But I personally don't want to trade from here because I don't have a local invalidation. What I mean by that is, if I trade from here, then my invalidation can't be local because it's all just an SR area. Technically, my long would not be wrong as long as this range holds, but I don't want to do that for a scalp or day trade based on this strategy. So, what I'll wait for is either price coming down to the lower level and showing some strength, or I'll simply not trade and wait for the next opportunity. Here's something to keep in mind. Technically, we've hit the SR level on the upside and also had a daily SFP inside that area. In a bearish case, this would mark the highs, with targets being the low of the range. Based on today's average loss, that would be possible, as it sits around 150K. Meanwhile, the average gain for today lines up really nicely with our upper level, which I mentioned earlier with the weekly and monthly stats. So technically, both levels are possible. Now, I don't aim for them as long as price is at support and not showing weakness, and also not for the highs unless price can actually break above the resistance level. But I keep them in mind for confluence if we reach them today. In the past days, we had nice confluences where the average gain or loss aligned with local levels. Now it's basically either the low of the range or a breakout side. Again, as long as support is holding, we could see an upwards choppy structure, basically grinding up. For the bears, they'd want to see this level lost, best case with a weekly close below. Until then, it's not bearish. Early signs of weakness would be forming a local top here. That would happen if this daily candle closes below the previous day. In that case, chances increase to move first to the mid-range and then to the lower part. Until that happens, and since I don't want to front-run these things, I'd still say this is support until it's not. To cover both sides, yes, the bears need bearish closes, and best case a weekly close below this range. Otherwise, it's just chopping up from here. If we do come lower, then we have our next support levels. I'm not aiming for them right now. As long as support holds, we'll come back to them when the time comes. For today, I'm simply looking to see if the Monday high and the daily OB hold. For me personally, this is a no trade area. If it comes lower to the 3-day order block, that's where I'd look for a scalp or day trade. In case this level gets lost, my next area would be the average loss for today and the range low with the daily swing low. What I'd want to see there is a move down. If traded aggressively, then the stop loss needs to be a bit wider, since it could wick deeper to wash out high leverage trades. A safer approach would be to wait for a reclaim of the level, best case with a structure break. That would give a cleaner entry with a local invalidation formed. For the bears, of course, they want this level lost. In that case, I'd expect to take out all the poor lows on the left side. For now, that's unlikely unless something big happens, and I just can't ignore all the support levels we have here. If it happens, then happy days for the people who shorted the highs without confirmation. That would be a win for them. but I'd still first look for higher lows, and only if those get invalidated would I reassess whether it's actually bearish. If the poor lows get taken out, I'd check the SR levels. If they get reclaimed, then it's still bullish. If not, then more downside, of course. Until then, for day trades, I'll focus on the local levels, mainly the 3-day OB. If that fails, then the lower part of the range. If we see a bounce from here, I'll simply sit it out and wait for higher prices and my next take profit area on the longs. Well, that's basically it. For now, I'm looking for higher, as long as support is holding. Only if it fails will I look for the new situation, because until it's confirmed that we break down and hold structure, I go with the current trend. And the stats are showing the possibility for higher as well, both this month and into the next quarterly. By the way, if you're interested in these videos every weekday, you can join the Patreon. There you'll get some stats sheets, the basic journal, and the advanced version will be available next year, plus more things to come in the future. For now, I also opened a copy trading setup on BitGet. It's a low-frequency strategy, and you're welcome to check it out. It's in a private copy trading section, so at the moment, I don't allow people to copy me publicly. But if you want to join me, for example, if you're learning and want to make some money on the side, or if you're not a trader at all, then it's a great function for you. Besides that, I hope everything is clear. If you need clarity, just ask me in the Telegram group or in Discord. Until then, I wish you a nice day, guys, and see you in the next one.